Welcome to the Top Employers podcast, where we explore ideas and perspectives for a better world of work. Today, we celebrate International Women's Day, and I'm very excited to be discussing, first of all, the state of affairs of where we are at in terms of inclusion of women in the workplace. How can we encourage and really urge action against bias? And last of all, but certainly not least, how can we celebrate the diversity of women's experiences in the way that we all show up at work? I'm Livia, your host for today. And with me, I have the privilege of having Ankita Sharma from Wipro. Ankita, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here, Livia. I'm looking forward for an exciting conversation.
I'm sure it will be. Would you like to share with us a little bit more about your role, maybe a little bit about Wipro? And I would love to hear, what makes you passionate about this topic?
Sure, Livia. I have about 2 decades of experience in the HR function. Today, in my current role, I head the human resources for Wipro's operations in Southeast Asia. Wipro is a leading technology services and consulting company focused on creating solutions to solve our clients' digital transformation needs. We are one of the largest, most reputed, purpose-driven organization across 65 countries and have 240,000 employees globally. In my current role, I've had the privilege of working with Top Employer and also to understand, which helps us to understand the industry norms and also to better our policies and processes internally too.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I've also had the experience of working with global teams, diverse workforces, and also to steer the strategic agenda of the business outcomes to create a more equitable world. I'm happy to be here, to be part of this conversation, and I hope we can add valuable insights to this point of topic.
I don't doubt that at all. Thank you, Ankita. Today, Ankita, we are coming together to celebrate International Women's Day and celebrate womanhood all around the world. I'm wondering if you would be able to share a little bit more around what, in your view, is celebrating womanhood all about, and particularly for the female experience at work, what does it mean?
Yeah. To me, celebrating International Women's Day is an appreciation of the love, care, respect of women all around us. It is also a celebration or an acknowledgement of the advances made in women's rights worldwide.
Absolutely.
It's also an occasion for us to call out the differences that are existing and the changes that we want to look at. So, how about you? What do you think?
That's beautiful. And I think that's a great way to put it. For me, celebrating womanhood is really about celebrating the range of experiences that we all have.
Yeah.
The totality of who we are as individuals, for instance, bringing our whole and authentic selves to work, ourselves with, for instance, later on we'll touch a little bit on this, but there are many women who bring, for instance, with them the multiple conditions of being. Women come to work with PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, women who, for instance, have, anxiety, depression, and, single mothers at the workplace, and women who work 2 jobs to make ends meet. I think there's a lot of us who bring a lot of different struggles to work every single day that maybe are just not evident, or pieces that we cannot see. Women with cross sections with neurodiverse conditions. So for me, that's really, I think, how can we in the workplace support all of these different, dimensions of who we are at work, right? Including introverted women, extroverted women, and there's so many of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you on that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So a little bit just moving on, I think I'm also curious, you've touched on your 2 decades of human resources experience, and I'm curious to know, reflecting on your own career, be it in the current company or before, what do you think the state of inclusion was like way back when you started? How did you feel coming to work every day? What was that experience like for you? And then, of course, how does that compare to where you think we are today?
Yeah. So when I started my career 2 decades ago, almost 2 decades ago, things were different from what it is today. However, I had the opportunity of working with great mentors, both men and women, who gave me the confidence that women can achieve a healthy work-life balance. It was very important for me to ensure that I am doing my due diligence at work, but also taking care of my family, my support system, and so on. Going back, I also ensured I have a great support system. My family has supported me in all possible ways,
Phenomenal.
which is very important.
Of course.
And at workplace as well, I had role models as managers who would tell me, don't be a superwoman. It's very important. You don't have to be that. And learn to delegate things at home, whichever is possible, so that you can focus on things which is very important at home as well. But also take care of yourself. Your personal well-being is very important too. So I grew up in that environment. However, what was missing then was very few women leaders I could see. So it was an aspirational miss then. But today things are changing. Today what is happening is organizations are talking about it, that there has to be a X percentage of women representation on the board. And there are strategies being built around it and work that is happening today. So in fact, in my company, Wipro as well, we made a commitment of increasing women leadership on board. 2 years ago, we started the journey, and today we've reached a score which is threefolds of what it was in FY21. So that's a remarkable change, and it is motivational to the young women who are coming into offices to see there's an equal representation at all levels.
Extremely. Yep. I have so many questions. I'm just going to take it one by one. Earlier, you mentioned that you were very fortunate. You had role models in the workplace. You had family support. And again, I think that's phenomenal, of course. But I think, what would you recommend for women who maybe don't have the same good fortune, to have that kind of strong support system, both at work and in the home? Do you have any recommendations or advice?
So one is what you want to do. It's very important for one to assess that do I want to excel in a particular area? If it's not there, it's not there. It's absolutely okay to not be pursuing something which is not your interest. So that's one thing, to know your interest level. And then is to reach out for support. I think it's very important for us to ask for support, be it at home, be it in our social circles, or be it at work circles. It's important to ask, and I'm sure there will be people who will be willing to help, to support, and to carve out an action plan or a career path which will be interesting for one.
So 100%. I think that's also the struggle I think a lot of us have. First of all, understanding, what do I want and what do I need? What is the direction my own career path is going?
Yes.
But it also requires us to be intentional about where we're going and what we want to learn.
Right.
I think that's exactly to your point. And of course, then you also mentioned, again, that fact about women in leadership positions, which you've mentioned, of course, it's such a strong example for women, again, to join the Wipro workforce. At least the fact that they can see, hey, there is a career trajectory for me in this organization. Are there maybe any examples or any interesting ways in which, you've seen this play out?
Yes, definitely. We, in fact, have multiple programs in the organization where we are seeing results. So stages of women's life, there are different programs catering to that. For example, there is a program which is women's return to work, returning mothers to work. We give support to a woman who has gone on maternity leave. And when they come back, there's an assurance that the capability building will be taken care of. The work environment will support the woman. So there's a constant touch point with the individual who's gone on a break, that when you come back, there's an assurance of a role, there's an assurance of a career path as well. So that's one program the way we see a lot of benefiting women. Secondly, we also have a program which is called the second innings, or the second opportunity at work.
The second, what was that?
It's called Begin Again. We have a program called Begin Again, which is the second opportunity program. There have been women who've had to leave Wipro in the past years to cater to their personal requirements, not necessarily maternity, but could be other reasons as well. We welcome them back.
Oh, beautiful.
So that benefits a lot of women employees. You can always come back. Yes, there will be a role requirement that will be done, but we give them that platform to do that. Additionally, there's also a program where we have, which is called Enrich for women leaders, capability building for them. So how do you aspire to become a leader? So that's how the program what teaches them.
So if I understand this correctly, in theory, it would be possible for me to, for instance, be part of the organization, take a career break to support my family in different ways, come back, and for instance, let's say my skill set had grown in a certain way, come back through either Begin Again or return to the Return to Work program, and then again have an opportunity to be part of Enrich in the Women's Leadership Capability program.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful way to string it all together, I think, for the end-to-end experience.
Yes, that's the intent.
Oh, yes. There you go. Beautiful. Ankita, just touching a little bit beyond motherhood. And I know this is a little bit tricky because, of course, as working parents, I think a lot of us will need a great deal of support in the workplace. But also, I think a lot of the conversations, a lot of the content and the policies that we have, a lot of them are centered around supporting mothers in the workplace. And coming back to our original point earlier about, the totality of the female experience, there are a lot of women in the workplace who also need support, maybe not from the standpoint of being a mother, be it, I mentioned, health conditions, neurodiversity, and many other sort of circumstances in women's lives where we also need support. I think it was just last week in the Davos Economic Forum where I recall it was mentioned that investing in women's health translates, I think every dollar invested in women's health translates to $3 in again, economic outcomes. And there's a $1 trillion opportunity here, for instance, in terms of that. So I'm actually wondering, from your view, what are some of the things that are being done or can be done to support, women who are not mothers?
Livia rightly said, it's important for us to touch all facets of women's life. It's not only the motherhood, while that is a key component, but not that only. In Wipro, we do check programs. We do have programs for to touch these areas as well. Now, what we do in Wipro is we have one of the program is the breast cancer awareness program that we do.
Beautiful.
It's called the Tech Day in Pink. We partner with a client, and there's a lot of messaging around, how you have to do annual checkups, how the benefits of doing an annual checkup and avoiding, getting into the zone of not being healthy. Apart from this, we also have a lot of other forums that we've created for women leaders. There is a program called W Connect, where women leaders connect, have a candid conversation with the CEO, and they share their insights. They gain the the mentorship programs from them, and so on. So that's one platform which is available. I did speak about Enrich earlier, which is for high performance, high potential women leaders. It's a complete curriculum that is created for them. But even at junior bands, we have tailor-made programs, curriculums, which will help in capability building for women who are joining us in the initial levels. How do we develop them? How do we develop their skills are also taken care of. So there's a lot of programs which are tailored around capability building and career building for women at different stages of life.
I'm also curious. I think there's a lot that we've spoken about regarding support for the individuals. I'm curious if you're able to speak to anything for support for managers to manage gender diverse teams, or maybe the opposite, for instance, where some teams tend to be gender heavy one way or the other.
Yes, definitely. So the program that I mentioned about returning mothers, while the end receiver is the woman employee, But there's a lot of coaching and guidance given to the manager at that stage. How a manager should be looking at an employee who's going on a maternity break and coming back, and looking at the capability enhancements for that woman is the manager who needs to do that. And hence, he or she is the touch point there. Apart from this, what we do is we do constant communications at our manager level. I would not say there are goals defined, but definitely there is a lot of communication on having a diverse portfolio. Even while hiring, there's a lot of emphasis that is given to managers and a lot of guidance given to managers on looking at skill enhancement for diverse workforce. So that is taken care of.
Beautiful. That's very comprehensive. And I think it's so important that we have managers who are equipped to handle conversations, again, with, the different dimensions of the workforce. To be honest, I know we speak, of course, today for International Women's Day, we speak a lot about the female experience, but we know that's just one way of looking at gender. And there's, I think, again, conversations that need to be had with the entire gender spectrum. And there's a lot of nuance to it. So completely with you. It's all in soft skills. It's all in the communication. Let's zoom in a little bit into Asia Pacific. I would love to hear your views on where we are in terms of inclusion and diversity within Asia itself.
So, Livia, every geography is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So there are advancements made in certain countries before the other countries. And in my experience, I've had the advantage of working with global organizations where I've seen that the strategy of the organization is global. However, based on the respective country's situation or the needs, changes are done. It's aptly modified and suiting to the countries. Southeast Asia in specific, there is a long way to go. There's a lot that's happened towards bringing inclusivity at workplace, but I do see that there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of changes to be made in future. So according to a survey that I was just going through earlier, in Asia Pacific, the women workforce just comprises 35%, which is a number that I think has a long room to grow.
We do.
While it's 35% at a workforce level, when it comes to leadership level, the number reduces to 3 to 5%. So
why am I not surprised?
Yes. So that's what we need to look at. But what I'm also seeing is a lot of companies are looking at it. There's strategies that are being built. How do we develop this number? Because it's not just a number, it's a representation. And it's important to have the equal representation on the table so that we have benefits from all spheres of life.
And I think for me, one of the struggles around this is the way that a lot of research is also concentrated outside of Asia Pacific. So I think globally we crossed a major milestone last year. I don't know whether you would have heard about it. It was when the number of women CEOs leading our top US-based companies overtook the number of male CEOs named John.
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful, but so ironic at the same time.
Yeah.
And to me, I think the difficulty is also how do we then translate these kinds of statistics and research within Asia Pacific? You've mentioned 3 to 5% women leaders in Asia, but I also know the difficulty of actually kind of pulling in strong data behind this kind of methodology. So, again, it is with the organizations that we work for, being data-driven being one of the most fundamental tenets. The first piece is I think we need a lot more support, I think, systematically around understanding gender diversity in Asia itself. And I guess to me, that's part of the conversation we're having today. That's
right. It all starts with the communication, and I think we're doing that right now.
We're trying.
Yeah, we're trying.
But I'm with you. I think there is so much nuance. Gender diversity in Malaysia looks different from gender diversity in Thailand, in Indonesia, in Japan, in China. Some of the conversations I've had, for instance, with my China-based colleagues are completely different from the struggles we have, for instance, in India or Southeast Asia, where, for instance, I think it's clear to a lot of organizations the gender balance in the workforce is the opposite. where there are a lot of female working professionals in major cities in China. And so then when you trickle down a global strategy of let's, drive, women representation, but at the local level, that sometimes that looks very different. And I think for me, it's more about, yes, of course, we measure diversity in certain ways. We measure, success in gender equality in certain ways. But for me, it's also part of a bigger conversation about diversity in your team, right? How do you have people thinking differently about the same problem? And of course, then also similarly supporting people with different life experiences in a holistic way. So I'm sorry if I'm digressing, but to me, it's just connected to a much broader conversation. So just as an extension of that, I think, yes, we know now a lot of companies, a lot of the top employers also that we work with are now working on expanding the definition of diversity beyond gender. Yes, for many years we have tracked our male versus female dimensions in the workforce. But now, if we broaden that conversation a little bit beyond gender, now we're looking at LGBTQIA plus rights. Now we're looking at neurodiversity. Now we're looking at different dimensions of DEI. And now there is belonging in the conversation as well. So now it's DEIB, and who knows what else will come. So I'm wondering, again, do you think this landscape looks a little bit different now if we look at the different dimensions of DEI in Asia?
Oh, yes, definitely. In fact, I believe that everyone brings a unique talent. Every individual adds to the building block of the enterprise. So in my organization, we believe collective representation matters. And
absolutely, it does.
Yes, and it can contribute to drive change. And that's why we have something called as an employee resource group and affinity groups. So individuals get together to speak on a topic, and that's how we get feedback, inputs on how we want to change, what's required to change. Groups such as, which is towards working towards disability inclusions is one of it. We have a Black Alliance group. We have Working Moms group. So these are the different ERGs, as we call it, and they support the DEI strategy that we have for the company.
Thank you so much, Ankita. That's beautiful sharing. And I want to, I think, switch gears a little bit and share just a little bit of perspective from our top employers survey as well. So as you know, we assess companies on how they fare against a variety of human resources best practices. And one of the things that we noticed from our trends from 2024 was that, first of all, one of the things I want to touch on is the DEI Change Champion program, which we've noticed is an area that a lot of our top employers globally are struggling with. So, for instance, last year, only 51% of top employers did this consistently. And this year, it's, kind of crept up by 7 percentage points. And the idea of a DEI Change Champion program is employees acting as DEI champions to role model what inclusion looks like in their teams, as well as act as advocates and bridge the gap between what HR is doing and the policies and programs being implemented versus how the individual's lived experience is like every single day in their team. So really acting as a sort of ground-up voice and ground-up advocate, within the organization. What are your thoughts on this? And, collectively, first of all, I guess, what is Wipro doing? What in your experience have organizations done? And what do you think we can do more of?
Rightly said, Livia. I think it's important to have right focus, and that can be achieved with a collective championing group around it. In Wipro, our I&D efforts are supported wholeheartedly by the leadership team.
First of all, I have to say that's rare. So wonderful. Congratulations for securing that.
Thank you. Our CEO is the executive sponsor of the I&D Council. So it starts from there. And we have a global I&D Council, which is led, as I said, by the CEO. And it has the world leaders of Wipro as members of the council.
Phenomenal.
And then, so this council builds the strategy. of the entire global organization. Then at business unit levels, we again have business unit-wise councils, IND councils.
Yep.
The business unit councils work on the implementation of the strategy. To support this council, we have a network of inclusion champions who are the spokesperson, who are the flag bearers of the initiatives at grassroots level. So these are the different levels that a strategy is built and implemented in the organization. The IND charter is run by our culture officer, our people culture officer, and reports in there. So there's extreme high focus of IND efforts in the organization because we know that this will lead to enhancing our business outcomes.
But that's fantastic. I think, first of all, I think it's phenomenal. You have such a strong support structure, first of all, for the NI initiatives to begin with, or I think what you call it is inclusion and diversity,
Yes.
IND.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think, first of all, it's so phenomenal. You have a strong leadership panel in place. You have leadership support for the initiatives. And that means it's real, and that means it's in the backbone of the efforts. And I think there is always a very small danger of running D&I initiatives for the sake of, right, for optics. Let's be honest. It does happen within organizations. And I think it's clear to me that within Wipro, it's really, I think, baked into the purpose and the drive of what you do. So
absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yes.
I mean, again, for achieving that. I'm sure it has been a journey to achieve that kind of buy-in.
It has been a long journey, but it's yielding results a lot now.
There you go. Enough said. And what within this, of course, I know we've spoken a lot about the D&I Council and the structure of how it's set up, but what do you think is the role that HR can play, maybe at the localized level or at the regional level, especially, of course, in your capacity?
HR plays a very crucial role. We take consistent step towards building a stronger, diverse, and a more equitable global enterprise. It's important that the policies and processes that we create are towards all employees, all individuals, and there is respect, there is inclusivity, and there's value for every individual in the organization. So it's important for us to do that. We also navigate our business leaders in their decision making towards creating a global workforce. So I think all in all, while we create the framework at a very strategic level, it's also important that we navigate the decisions when it comes to implementing those strategies.
Every time we talk about how strategies are implemented, how they will impact individuals, and this is something that within top employers we talk about a lot, I want to touch on, again, for our conversation, I would love to touch on the individual's role in all of this. Yes, organizations set strong frameworks, strong structures with leadership buy-in, with budgets behind, plenty of initiatives, opportunities to engage. But at the same time, I think, well, again, our view is that there's a lot of individual onus on again, being involved. And also, once again, coming back to the female experience, there are a lot of ways in which, we need support. For instance, I've heard organizations that have implemented one voluntary time off day a month, for instance, for difficult menstrual cycles. But that is with the assumption that the organization knows what you need, for instance. So there's, again, lots of conversations to get there.
Yep.
What do you think individuals can do, again, to sort of speak up for what they need as individuals?
So, Livia, what I think success of any program lies when there is equal action from both ends. As you rightly said, it's important for individuals to speak up as well, to share as well, for us to frame the right path for them. What we have is, as I mentioned earlier, we have the employee resource groups, but it's for the individuals to join and participate over there. So while we've created the platforms, we urge our employees to make declarations while they're joining so that we can make pathways for them. we can create pathways that will help in the career development and also to hear the voices. It's important. So one is the employee resource group where individuals can speak up, communities coming together, talking about their causes, talking about their wants or their beliefs is important. That helps us to pave a way for strategy for the next year. Additionally, what I also would like to say is in Wipro, we also take a declaration from employees at the beginning of before they're joining the organization, if there's any disability involved. Because it's important for us to provide the reasonable accommodation for them.
For sure.
And ensure that the workplace is friendly, workplace is conducive for them to stay, to survive, and to also grow. So it's important that way.
Ankita, we've been speaking so much about the journey of how diversity, equity, inclusion, and of course belonging is going to be a continuous evolution. I wanted to pivot a little bit and talk about momentum. How do you think as organizations we can retain that momentum, that interest, that energy behind all these initiatives? How can we maintain leadership buy-in as well as employee buy-in at the individual level? And, again, for DEI professionals, this, it's something that drives what you do every single day. How do we retain that motivation to, fight the tough fight every single day?
Very rightly said, Livia. I think what works well in my organization, I think it's twofolds. One, there is a sponsorship at leadership level. It's very important that the leaders have the strategic focus towards DEI. That's one. Second thing is...
So you're saying let's not take it off the plate ever.
Never. It should not be. And the second thing is constant communication. It is important for all employees or all individuals in the organization to know what's happening.
Yep.
To know what are the platforms available for them, because life is changing. As you mentioned earlier, there could be stages of life that I will come across during my work span in my personal life.
Absolutely.
So it's important for me to know at every point of time that what are my options? Where can I go to ask for help? Or where can I just go to share my viewpoints? It's important. So communication plays a very important role. Communications can be through, emails. Communications can be through verbal conversations. Communications can be through trainings that we do as well. So this is important. What we also do, we work with our clients, our partners as well, where we discuss with them on how inclusivity is important, how inclusivity will help us to collaborate and get a better diverse workforce, which will help us in a larger goal of outputs.
And that final point, I think, is so critical because I feel like all of us have a responsibility to, again, speak about this consistently, again, and spread the message about what is important, what isn't. And again, I think it's about awareness, right? The power of noticing what's going on around you, the power of noticing what you need, the power of noticing what other people need. And, similarly, whether you manage or not, whichever kind of team you work in, that you have that awareness and you bring it to work every single day. So yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Sort of final question on this, and I know we are sort of talking about, future state, how things might look like. Do you have maybe an ideal future state of what inclusion and belonging could look like for women?
Oh, yes. In generic, I think an ideal world is where every individual is empowered to realize their ambition. But in very specific to me, if I have to say, an ideal world will be when somebody in the room mentions the word doctor, and not everyone thinks of a man with a stethoscope.
Oh. Or a policewoman, or policeman or policewoman.
Yes.
Or, again, many, many different occupations.
Yes. The image has to change in the minds of our young children. It's important for us to not stereotype roles. It's important for us to break those barriers that these roles are only specific to a specific gender.
Yes.
And be global.
And that has so many implications for the future of our workplaces. If I say software engineer today, what do you think? Right? And how does that then, you've mentioned, of course, that, how our children think about their career paths. And there are so many future jobs that we cannot even imagine today with generative AI in the conversation and with technology evolving the way we're going to work. So that's absolutely on point. Thank you for mentioning that. And that actually leads us to the end of today's episode. A little bit too soon, but I think all good things have to come to an end. Massive, massive thank you, Ankita, for being here. It's been such a privilege and a joy to have you on the podcast. I think you really brought your special flair to today's episode. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Livia. And I've enjoyed this as well. I'm happy to share my insights, and it's a wonderful experience for me too. Hoping that this message reaches out to people and can inspire others too.
Absolutely. Well, in line with this year's International Women's Day theme of Inspire Inclusion, we do hope you found something inspiring in today's podcast. Do leave us your comments. We want to hear from you. Like Ankita has mentioned, it's a conversation, and we definitely want to have this conversation moving forward. If you have any thoughts or any comments or questions, please feel free to connect with Ankita or myself on LinkedIn. We're very happy to connect again and to exchange ideas. And of course, at Top Employers Institute, again, always happy to chat. Do share this episode, tag a friend, and of course, please, if you're interested in more HR content like this, do subscribe to our channel, and let's connect and continue this conversation for a better world of work. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thank you.